The girl of Firestone Ridgevedra was not a world for the weak. The air felt like hot sand scratching every breath. The ground cracked open without warning. Storms came fast and vanished faster, leaving the sky dry and silent. Creatures with bone-thick hides roamed the valleys. Some walked on 6 legs while others crawled with teeth longer than arms. On this world full of danger and silence lived a girl named Kale. Kale knew no comfort. Her days were spent climbing rocks sharper than blades. Her nights passed inside caves that smelled of old blood. Her only music was the howl of winds blowing through broken trees. She had no memory of her parents, no memory of how her kind vanished. She only knew that they were gone, and she was still here. Her body had learned to live with pain. Skin tougher than bark, bones that healed fast, eyes that could see in dust. She moved with speed through the harsh land, never falling, never stopping. Her world never gave her kindness, so she gave none back. One morning Kale followed the trail of a beast across the Firestone Ridge. The ground glowed red in some places from the heat beneath. Ash floated in the wind like tiny black snow. Her sharp eyes caught footprints near a dried stream. They were large and clawed. The beast would be a challenge, but Kale smiled in her heart. A good hunt gave her purpose. She moved without sound. Her spear made of crystal bone rested in her hand. Her breath steady, her pace sure. The tracks turned toward the edge of a cliff. Kale followed them with care. When she reached the top, she stopped. The sky above her lit up. A streak of fire crossed above the clouds. It roared without thunder. A burning trail of metal fell from the heavens and vanished behind the mountains. The air shook for a moment. Birds hidden in caves burst out and flew away in panic. Kale stared at the sky. She had never seen such a thing. She had heard of metal falling from stars, but only in old stories told by dying voices. Stories of ships that flew beyond air. Stories of outsiders who once came and failed to last a single night. Kale stood frozen for a moment, then turned from the beast's trail. Something deep inside her told her to find where the skyfire had fallen, not for food, not for parts, but for something else. Something she could not name. She moved fast across sharp rocks and dry cracks. The ground trembled under her feet, but she did not slow down. Her legs pushed forward like a river. Her mind burned with thoughts she never felt before. What if this was a weapon? What if this was a sign? What if someone had come to Vedra again? By the time she reached the smoking crash, it was night. The sky above was deep black with stars that blinked like cold eyes. Fire lit the valley below where the object had fallen. She saw twisted metal scattered like broken bones. Parts of a ship burned in small patches. The smell was strange. Not like ash, not like death, but like something that had come from beyond. Kale moved down the slope with care, her spear ready, her senses wide. Every breath she took burned a little, but she had grown used to that pain long ago. As she stepped near the wreck, she heard something, a sound, not from the metal, not from the wind, a voice, weak, faint, struggling. Kale paused. Her heart beat faster than usual. She had not heard another voice in years. She stepped closer. Then she saw him. Inside a broken part of the ship lay a figure, not tall, not strong, covered in strange cloth and metal. A being with pale skin and blood on the forehead. He moved slightly. His hand reached out slowly as if asking for water or help. Kale stood still. She stared. He was not like her. He looked soft. He looked fragile. He looked human. She had only heard of humans once, from the old elders before they vanished. They were a race that lived on blue worlds with soft ground and quiet air. They had minds like fire and hearts that did not stop. But their bodies were weak. Their bones broke with ease. Their skin burned in light. So what was he doing here? On Va Edra. Kale thought of walking away. Let the world take him. Let the cold eat him or the storm wash him away. That was nature's way. Only the strong survived. Only the ones born for this place had the right to stay. But something inside her stirred, curiosity maybe, loneliness. Maybe she could not name it. She moved forward. The human blinked. His lips moved, but no words came. Cale bent down and touched his forehead. It was hot, but not from fever, from fear. From the crash. From the way his body fought against the world around him. She saw cuts on his arms, bruises on his chest, a deep gash on his leg. He should have died already, but he had not. He was alive. Barely. Cale pulled him from the wreck. Not because he asked, not because he earned it, but because something inside her wanted to know, wanted to understand. She dragged him across the rocks, carried him over rough land, took him to one of her old shelters carved in stone. The human passed in and out of sleep. Sometimes he groaned, sometimes he whispered in a strange tongue. Cale sat near the fire and watched him, her spear close, her eyes sharper than ever. She did not trust him. She did not know what he wanted, but he had survived the fall. He had breathed the air. He had not died. That made him interesting. That made him dangerous. Cale stared at the flames. For the first time in many seasons she felt her world shift. Not from a storm. Not from a beast. But from a human. The intruder in the wreck. Morning came. Slow on Vedra. The sky turned from deep black to a dull orange. Ash still floated in the air. Far in the distance a storm rolled across the plains, but it had not reached the hills yet. Inside a stone shelter half covered in vines the fire had burned low. The girl sat beside it with quiet eyes watching the stranger breathe. He was not awake, but his chest moved. His face twitched now and then like he saw things in his sleep. His hands shook a little. His skin looked pale like soft clay pressed under heat. The girl had never seen someone like this before. His kind was not built for Vedra. That was clear from the way his body reacted to the air and ground. Still he had lived through the crash. He had not broken under the first night. That alone made him different from the stories. She had heard humans were clever but weak, loud but short-lived, curious but soft. Now she looked at one who had landed in fire and lived in dust and had not yet died. The girl moved closer. She had washed his wounds the night before with bitter root water. She had wrapped his leg with a strip of old skin from a fire beast. Her hands had worked fast like always, but her mind had not stopped asking why she had bothered at all. Maybe she wanted to know if he could speak. Maybe she wanted to hear another voice. Maybe something deeper had woken inside her and would not go quiet again. The man stirred. His eyes opened slow like doors never used before. They were light brown with a strange calmness inside. He blinked once, then again. His mouth opened, but no words came. Only a breath escaped his lips. The girl stayed silent. He looked around the cave. His gaze landed on the fire, then on his wrapped leg, then finally on her face. He did not scream. He did not jump back. He only stared like someone seeing a wild animal for the first time and trying not to move. She tilted her head. He raised one hand and pointed at himself. Then he touched his chest and said one word. Rain's sound was broken and weak but clear. His voice had a strange softness to it. Not like the wind, not like a beast. Something human. Rain's girl did not answer. She only watched. He pointed again. Rain. She frowned a little, then slowly raised one finger and pointed at herself. Cale. The name came from her lips without thought. She had not spoken it in many seasons. She had not needed to. There had been no one to hear. But now it floated in the air between them like a small spark waiting to catch. Rain smiled. It was small and tired and strange, but real. Cale did not smile back. Rain tried to sit up, but pain struck his side and he winced. He fell back with a sharp breath. His hands gripped the edge of the stone bed. his body still weak from the crash and the strange air, but he did not cry out. He did not ask for help. He lay still and waited. Kale stood and moved to the corner where she kept food. Dry roots crushed into powder mixed with bitter fruit. She brought a small piece of stone and placed it beside him. He looked at it, took it, tasted it, made a face. Kale crossed her arms. If he wanted to live here, he would eat what the land gave her rain. Chewed slow and forced it down. She could see it was hard for him, but he did not stop. That earned a small nod from her. He would not break easy. For many hours they did not speak. Kale sat near the entrance, sharpening her spear with the stone. Rain worked. Unbreathing, steady now, and then he coughed, but he did not complain. Kale watched him from the corner of her eye. He had no armor, no weapon, no knowledge of the land, yet he had survived the fall and the night. She could not understand it. That evening he pointed toward the wreck in the valley. He tried to say something, but his voice still weak. He moved his hands, showing shapes in the air. Kale understood he wanted to go back to the crash. He had tools. There may be a way to call others, but his leg would not carry him for many days. She shook her head slow. Not yet, too soon. He nodded and looked at the fire, his eyes filled with thought. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small flat square. He pressed it, and a light blinked. A voice spoke from it in a strange tongue. Kale took a step back. She had never heard machines talk. Rain smiled and held it up, pressed another part, and a new voice came. This time the words were slow, clear, and strange. A voice that tried to speak her way. Hello, friend, safe. Kale stared at the thing. She felt her heartbeat grow faster. This man had brought a voice box from another world. He had learned her tongue with. I wanted peace. But why come here? Why risk death? Why search for a world like Vedresh? Turned her back and stepped outside. Wind hit her face like ash and flame. She needed time to think. She needed to understand. What had changed the world had always been cruel, simple, wild. She hunted, she ate, she survived. Now a man had fallen from the sky. He had no claws, no sharp teeth. He had kindness in his eyes and fire in his mind. He had not run from her. He had smiled. Kale looked at the dark sky. Stars blinked above for the first time in years. She felt small, not in body, but in thought. Maybe the world was bigger than she believed. She was not the only one who could live in pain. Maybe strength had many faces. She turned back toward the cavern, sat near the fire, feeding small sticks to the flame. His hands shook, but his eyes held light. Kale stepped inside without a word, sat near the wall, watched him work. The silence between them now felt different, not empty, not cold. It was waiting for something new, waiting for what tomorrow would bring. Of fire and flesh the days passed slow on Vedrev. Sky stayed red in the morning and gold by evening, then black as stone at night. Ash always drifted in the wind like tiny memories of things that once livid. Rain began to move more each day. He limped at first, but he did not stop trying. His hands always reached for something to fix. He opened parts of his broken machine and took out wires, small tools, strange clear pieces that glowed when pressed. Kale watched him from a distance, at first never speaking much, just watching, always alert. She saw how he shaped pieces together, how he made a small light from nothing, how he carved a broken panel into a signal box, and then tested it again and again. He failed many times, but each time he picked it back up with the same calm hands. No anger, no fear, just focus. Kale had never seen such patience. On Vedra, there was no time for mistakes. One wrong step, and the earth swallowed you. One missed sound and the beast would tear your back. But Rain made mistakes and lived. He broke things and fixed them again. Kale started bringing him sharp rocks, strong vines, hollow bones, anything she found on her hunt. She said no words. She placed them near his tools and left. Rain always smiled, always thanked her with a small nod. He used everything she brought together without words. They built something, not a machine, not a home, something silent that formed in the air between them. Trust. One night, while Kale returned from a far ridge with dry fruit in her pack, the sky turned dark too fast. A storm rolled over the hills from the west, faster than usual, with black clouds thick as smoke and winds that screamed like lost voices. Kale reached the cave Just before the dust rose inside, Rain had lit the fire high, held his device to the wall, trying to link it with a small antenna he had built from broken rods. The wind outside roared, then something else came, a sound deep and low, like thunder under. The ground Kale felt the stone floor tremble, her eyes narrowed. She grabbed her spear and moved toward the entrancer. Rain followed, slow but firm, holding a thick stick wrapped with burning cloth at one end. He'd had made fire his weapon. Kale stepped out into the wind. Her eyes scanned the dark. She saw movement near the trees. Not wind, not dust. Something large, something wrong. A shadow walked through the ash with legs thick as trees. Back rose like a hill. Its eyes burned faint red through the storm. Kale knew the beast, one of the old ones, a crawler that crushed trees for fun and hunted by sound. It had no fear, it had no hunger, only rage. She turned and pulled Rain back into the cave, but the beast had heard. The storm had hidden their scent, but the fire spoke louder than breath. The creature charged. The ground split under its feet. Kale pushed Rain behind a wall and stood at the cave mouth. Her spear raised, her heart calm. She had faced death before this. Time felt different, not because of the beast, but because of the human behind her. She did not want to die. Not now, not yet. The crawler slammed into the entrance. Stone cracked. Kale stabbed her spear forward, hitting soft flesh near the neck. The creature roared. It pulled back, then struck again. Rain ran forward through the burning stick into its eye. The fire hissed against the wet skin, but it burned. The beast screamed and backed away, swinging its head wildly. Kale jumped from the ledge and landed on its back. She stabbed again and again. The creature rolled and slammed into the wall. Kale held tight. Rain grabbed a sharp piece of metal and ran to the side. He climbed part of the broken wall and stabbed the soft belly with all his strength. The beast held its legs, buckled it, fell to the ground shaking, then stopped. Silence returned, only the storm remained. Kale stood still, breathing heavy, blood on her arms, dust in her hair, pain in her shoulder, but her eyes were steady. Rain sat beside the fallen beast, his chest rising fast, but he smiled. His face showed fear, but also wonder. Kale looked at him. This man had no claws, no fangs, yet he had fought like one born of Vadran. With strength, but with fire and mind and heart. She helped him stand. He leaned on her shoulder without shame. Inside the cave they sat near the fire again, both quiet, both alive. Kale saw his hands bleeding from the sharp metal. She took a cloth and wrapped them, slow and careful. Rain winced once, but said nothing. Kale did not speak either, but inside something had changed. She did not see him as weak anymore, not soft, not strange, but strong in another way. Strong in choosing to stay strong, in protecting someone not his own. Strong in finding light where there was only stone and ash. Days passed again. Rain's signal box blinked once. Then again he looked at Kale. She understood. A message had gone through. Someone had heard help was coming. Rain pointed at the sky. He placed a hand on his chest, then pointed at her. His meaning was clear. He wanted her to come with him, to leave Vadros's. Kale looked outside. The tough world she knew stretched far and wide. It had raised her, taught her pain, taught her silence, but now she had felt something new, connection. She turned back to the fire. Rain sat waiting, not pushing, just waiting. Kale did not answer with words. She only nodded once. Rain smiled wide. Kale let out a small breath, not a laugh, not a cry, something in between, the kind of sound only heard when the world begins to change. The sky responds. The sky over Vadra looked different now. Clouds still rolled across the wide plains. Dust still moved like smoke in the wind. Heat still rose from deep cracks in the stone, but something unseen had shifted. Something new had entered the air. Hopper Rain woke each day before the sun climbed the cliffs. He checked the signal box first, watched the small light blink in steady rhythm. One blink meant nothing. Two meant maybe three, meant someone had heard. Each morning he counted, and each morning the number grew. Kale noticed the change in him. He stood taller now. His steps held more weight. His voice spoke clearer. The human who had once shivered in the dirt now walked with purpose. Kale felt it too. She hunted with sharper focus, listened to the wind with deeper care. Her hands built stronger walls around the shelter. She no longer saw her cave as a hiding place. Now it felt like a Homer rain started. Teaching her new things, he showed her how to use metal scraps to build tools. He drew star maps on the cave walls, using burnt sticks and soft stone. Taught her simple words in his tongue. Son, friend, home. Kale repeated the words in silence when alone. They did not feel heavy like her own tongue. They felt like leaves floating in the wind. Rain had questions too. He asked her about the creatures of Vagrith, patterns in the storms, the roots that healed the body. Kale answered with short nods and careful signs. He watched her every move with wide eyes, as if every part of her life held deep meaning together. They cleaned the wreck of the old ship. Rain moved slow but sure. Kale pulled metal plates free with her strength. Rain checked wires and made careful notes. He said the main beacon still worked. It had sent a signal across the dark sky. He hoped a ship would come soon, not just for him, but for her too. Kale had never thought of leaving. Her world was cruel, but it was hers. She knew every ridge and every shadow. She had fought beasts taller than huts and walked alone under storms that tore trees apart. Still, something in her heart had begun to shift. Not because of what lay beyond the sky, but because of the human beside her. Rain never forced her to speak, never asked her to change. He only showed her that there was more than pain and silence, that a world could hold both danger and light. Then, one morning, everything changed. Kale stood at the edge of the cliff, watching the horizon. A new sound entered the sky, a low hum rising slow from far above. She looked up. A shape moved through the clouds, smooth and silver with lights along the sides. It flew in wide circles before slowing down near the valley. Kale ran to the shelter. Rain already stood outside, his face filled with joy and fear. He looked at her eyes, asking the question without words. Will you come? Kale stared at the ship above. She felt her chest tighten. Land behind her held memories of fire and loss, but the path ahead held something unknown. She did not answer. Right away the ship landed with dust swirling around. A door opened with a low hiss. Two humans stepped out. They wore thick suits and moved with care. They looked at Rain and called his name. Answered with a weak laugh, then pointed at Kale. The humans looked at her with surprise. One took a step forward, then paused. Kale felt the weight of many eyes, not just theirs, but the eyes of her past, of those who came before her, of those who never left the stone valleys. Rain stepped beside her. He held out his hand. Kale looked at it, not soft, not weak, just steady. She placed her hand in his and took one step forward. The humans led them inside the ship. Kale paused at the door. She looked back at the hills, the red sky, the cracked earth, the place that made her who she was. She whispered a sound under her breath, not a name, not a goodbye, just a sound that held every part of her story. Then she walked inside the ship. Lifted wind roared, clouds passed fast. Kale felt her body press against the seat. Her hands gripped the sitter. Rain sat near her, smiling. He pointed at the window outside. Stars blinked brighter than ever. Kale stared in silence. Her world grew small behind her, but her heart felt large. For the first time, she saw what lay beyond the sky, not fernet fire, but endless space waiting to be known. She turned to Rain, did not speak. He only watched her, his eyes calm, his breath steady. Kale leaned back in her seat, her mind full of questions, her heart full of light. The human had entered her world. Now she was entering his. Two souls from different ends of the stars, bound not by blood or language, but by something deeper, the will to live, the strength to trust, the courage to change. A Deathworlder's choice. The stars outside the ship moved like slow rivers of light. Kale sat near a wide glass wall, staring into the black sky that never ended. She had never seen space before now. It stretched in every direction, with no ground, no sky, no edge inside. The ship's soft sounds filled the air. Machines hummed, lights blinked, doors opened with quiet rushes of air. Rain walked beside her down long halls made of smooth white metal. He showed her places where people slept, where food appeared from glowing boxes, where voices came through screens to speak from other ships far away. Kale listened with sharp ears and careful eyes. Everything felt strange. Nothing looked alive. No roots, no dust, no storms, only smooth lines and clean air. She missed the wind already. She missed the sound of stone under her feet. But she said nothing. Rain watched her with quiet care. He did not speak much since they left Vaydre. gave her space, let her think, let her feel the other humans looked at. Kale with wide eyes, some afraid, some curious, some amazed. She looked different, moved different, spoke different. She came from a world no one dared to visit now. She walked among them without fear. She was a living answer to many questions. She was proof of survival beyond the known stars. A voice came through the ship speakers. One morning, a new planet ahead, a green one, safe air, soft ground. Calm sky. Rain told Kale they would land for rest and supplies. He said she could stay if she wanted, or leave if she chose. He said the galaxy was large, she could go where she wished. Kale said nothing, but her thoughts moved fast like fire in dry grass. When the ship landed, she stepped outside with warmth. Ground felt soft under her boots. The sky held clouds, but no ash. The wind moved slow, and gentle birds flew above in strange patterns. Colorful trees grew in every direction. Rain smiled. He picked a fruit and handed it to her. She turned it in her hands. It felt too smooth, too perfect. Placed it down. They walked through a small outpost where more humans lived. They waved, spoke kind words, smiled. With soft eyes, Kale nodded back, but her face stayed still, her heart full of quiet weight. That night she sat alone near the edge of a lake. Stars above looked smaller. No rain found her there. He sat beside her without a word. They watched the water move in gentle waves. Kale broke the silence, her voice calm but strong. This world is not Mina. Rain looked at her. He nodded. You miss your land? She nodded. Once I was born from stone and storm. I grew with fire and fear. I learned to live in a place that kills without reason. This place is too quiet. Rain did not argue. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small object. It was the signal box he had built on Vedraburn, on the edges still marked with dust. Placed it between them. He spoke with a low voice. This saved me, but you saved me more. I came with tech, but no. So you gave me reason, you gave me life. Kale looked at the signal box. She touched its side with one finger. It no longer blinked. Its work was done. She looked at Rain. You are strong in a way I did not know. Rain smiled. You are strong in every way I hoped to find. They sat in silence again. Then Kale stood. She looked at the sky, at the stars, at the trees. She felt the world around her, then spoke with clear voice. I will go back. Rain stood too. You will return to Vedra. Kale nodded. It is not a place of peace, but it is my place. It still holds parts of me. I have not yet found. Rain looked down. Will you go alone? Kale looked at him with steady eyes. Do you want to come? Rain smiled. You already know my answer. They returned to the ship and spoke with the crew. A small vessel was prepared, built strong to handle wild land and heavy storms. Rain packed supplies. Kale gathered maps and routes she found useful. When the ship rose from the green planet, the stars above seemed brighter again. Kale felt her chest rise with new breath, not just of survival but of purpose. They landed back on Vedra after many days. The dust greeted them like an old friend. The heat welcomed them with familiar weight. Kale stepped out first. Her boots touched the red ground. Her eyes saw the sky. She knew her heart did not fear anymore and followed her down. He coughed once, then smiled back home. Kale led him across the cliffs, past old shelters, past broken ridges. They found a new place near the mountains. Strong stone, wide space, fresh roots. They built together day by day. They carved a home, not a shelter, a real home. Kale taught Rain to track beasts, to move with the wind, to hear danger before it. Rain taught Kale to use light, to store knowledge, to build with skill, not just strength. Seasons passed, fires came and went, storms roared, then faded, but they remained side by side, not as alien and human, not as guest and host, but as two hearts shaped by two worlds. Kale stood one night under the stars. She looked at the sky, not with anger, not with sorrow, but with peace. Had thought she was the only one built for pain, the only one born to endure. But then humanity entered her life, not with power, not with weapons, but with something stronger: compassion, curiosity, will. And in the end, that made all the difference. Kale was still a Deathworlder, still fierce, still wild, still proud. But now she was more. Now she was a bridge between stars, a voice between worlds, and she was not alone anymore. Never again. The end.